You asked me to repeat the last slide. So what we learned so far is the compounding process, about the compounding process. The objective is to study the time value of money. How is the value of money changing? We finished last lecture with this example. So how we have this sequence of deposits and withdrawals over 4 years. The question is, what would be the balance at the end of 4 years? So what is F? We need to find the value of 1,000 in 4 years, the value of the second 1,000 in 3 years, the value of this 1,210 after 2 years, the value of this 1,500 after 1 year. Okay, so I'm شوف the value of each amount at end of year 4. So خليني أقول لكم شغلة. We solved it in the last lecture using this method. So أخذنا 1,000 compounded once. شو يعني 1,000 compounded once? We found the value of 1,000 after 1 year. We added to 1,000. Deal? We have a resulting amount. This amount is compounded once to determine its value at end of year 2. We removed 1,210 to end up with a value that is compounded once, added to 1,500. The result is compounded one more time to get F end of year 4. You could have solved it differently. You could have said, okay, $1,000, let me compound it 4 times to find its value end of year 4. This 1,000, let me compound it 3 times to find its value end of year 4. Minus 1,210 compounded compounded twice, plus 1,500 compounded once. Okay, so في 2 methods to do this. If you want to go step by step, this was what they did in the slides. You could have chosen to go directly end of year 4 for each transaction and add أو subtract حسب إذا كانت deposit أو withdrawals. Is it clear?
Yes, doctor.
Yeah, perfect. Next lecture. Economic equivalence. Now that we understood the value of money, how is the value of money changing, we are ready to learn how to convert or how to find the equivalent of a cash flow, يعني how to choose any point in time and find an equivalent to an initial cash flow at this point of time. This will help us a lot in the comparison of different options. This is called economic equivalence. Yani we will be finding cash flows that are equivalent to initial ones economically. Why we will be transforming a cash flow to compare it to another one given at a different time basis. So economic equivalent. What do we mean by economic equivalence? We will answer this. What do we need to establish an economic equivalence? And how do we measure and compare different cash flows received at different points in time? So what is economic equivalence? This equivalence exists between 2 cash flows that have the same economic effect and could be traded for one another. شو يعني could be traded for one another? يعني economically going for this one or this one هي ذاتها. I can trade this cash flow for this one. يعني they are economically equivalent. They have the same economic effect. This is what we mean by economic equivalence. يعني money wise الeffect تبعهم هو ذاته. But we are transforming or finding the equivalent for convenience or for comparison reasons. Okay? Even though the amounts and timing of the cash flows may differ, the appropriate interest rate makes them equal in economic sense. So مع إنه رح حطهم على different points in time, they will be economic equivalents. This is a very simple example. ليش هيك شكلها هيك؟ Okay. So this is a simple example where we consider P and F from a personal financing point of view. شو يعني؟ If you deposit capital P today for N periods at I, you will have F يلي هي P1 plus I to the N at the end of period N. مظبوط؟ So this is economic equivalence. يعني having P today is equivalent to having F in 9 years. I can trade having P today for having F in N years. I can see it from a different point of view. F dollars at the end of N years. So F dollars at the end of N years is equal to a single sum P dollars now. If your earning power is I% is measured by I. Deal? So capital P today is equivalent to capital F in N years at an interest rate I. Clear? هذا أبسط economic equivalence example. Let's elaborate it more. This is an example. If you deposit $2,042 today in a savings account that pays 8% interest annually, من هلا ل few lectures لقدام على طول interest rate will be annually. بعدين we will learn how to find an effective interest rate on a different time basis. How much would you have at the end of 5 years? وقت تقروا الgiven, the first thing that you should do is to show a cash flow. If you deposit 2042 today, اليونت تبعي is yearly. I'm depositing 2042 today in a savings account that pays 8%. How much would you have at the end of 5 years? Very simple. How much would you have at the end of 5 years? So I will take F as 2042 into 1 plus 0.08 كم مرة 5. I will have $3,000. شو يعني؟ يعني having this P at 0 or this F at 5 is economically equivalent. Okay? So at 8%, having $2,042 today or $3,000 in 5 years is equivalent. عادة when we select a point in time to compare different alternatives, we commonly choose أو 0 أو capital N. أو 0 بنسميه present worth أو بالcapital M بنسميه future worth. So هيدا رح نبقى نسميها present worth. This is the future worth. هي أكتر شيء commonly. بس فينا ناخد at any small n in between مش بس على الزيرو وعلى الكابيتال n. يلا we can see it in the other direction as we have what amount that will be economically equivalent to $3,000 in 5 years. So what is the amount that will be equivalent to $3,000 in 5 years? شو بعمل؟ $3,000 in 5 years is P times 1 plus 0.08 to the 5. What is P? P is 3,000 over 1 plus 0.08 to the 5. أو رح تتعودوا تكتبوها 3000 into 1 plus 0.08 to the minus 5. شو عم بعمل؟ من الفيوتشر على البريزنت اسمه discounting. من البريزنت على الفيوتشر اسمه compounding. هون اسمها discounting. So عملوها backward. What amount will economically be equivalent to $3,000 in 5 years? 2042. $2,042 today is equivalent to $3,000 in 5 years at 8%. Deal? هلا we have a question. If two cash flows are equivalent, مش قلنا إنه $2,042 today is equivalent to 3,000 end of year 5? The question is, two cash flows that are equivalent will remain equivalent at any n in between? The answer is yes, أكيد. لأنه two cash flows that are equivalent at any common point in time. يعني the value of money at any n should be the same تيكونوا equivalent. Deal? Without changing the interest rate, أكيد at the same interest rate. So $2,042 today is equivalent to $3,000 in 5 years. $3,000 in 5 years at 8%. The question is, are these two cash flows also equivalent at any n in between? أخذوا at n3. Okay? So أخذوا at n3. Let's determine the value of 2042 end of year 3. شو لازم أعمل؟ Compounding 3 times 1, 2, and 3. Compounding 3 times يعني multiplying by 1 plus I to the power 3. I have $2,572. Let's check the value of $3,000 يلي هي end of year 5 at end of year 3. يعني I need to discount it 2 times. Discounting 2 times يعني multiplying by 1 plus I to the minus 2. 2,572. I should not be surprised. Two cash flows that are economically equivalent will be economically equivalent at any common point in time, as long as we have the same interest rate. Clear? Yalla, let's solve this problem. I have this cash flow with 6 transactions, one at 0, one at 1, end of year 1, end of year 2, etc. I want to convert it, I'll transform it, I'll find its equivalent at 3. شفتوا هول الستة transactions بدي to reduce them to 1 transaction that is economically equivalent to these 6 at end of year 3. Compute the equivalent value of the initial cash flow at 3 using an interest rate of 6%, 10%. يلا, how to find V at 10%?
بدي أعمل compounding لكل شيء قبل ال 3.
برافو.
شوف السم تبعهم ماينس كل شيء بعد ال 3 بدي أعمل لهم discounting.
مش ماينس.
مش ماينس. لا مش ماينس.
لا. Yes. ما عند كل very good. After 3 I need to discount. برافو على terms. قبل 3 I need to compound. What about the 150 at 3?
نخليها 80.
It remains the same. The value of $150 end of year 3 remains the same. كل شيء before 3 will be compounded. كل شيء after 3 will be discounted to end up with a nice expression of V. 100 compounded كم مرة؟ هيدا ال 100. 3 times plus 80 compounded twice plus 120 compounded once. 150 الفاليو تبعها remains the same لأنه it's at the end of year 3 plus 200 discounted once plus 100 discounted twice. Okay? You find the value of V. Any questions?
بس هي كفاليو دكتور بتتغير يعني حسب الو.
Sorry guys, can you hear me?
Yes doctor.
Oh, okay. Sorry for the interruption. So هذا the problem that we were solving. مثل ما قلتولي, this is a representation of what we did. We compounded the transactions before 3. We discounted اللي بعد 3. على 3 it remains the same to get V3. Any questions? I commonly have a misunderstanding here. كانوا يسألون ال students طب ما if I'm at 3, 4, 5 we should not consider them. انتبهوا I'm at 3, I'm determining the value of all these transactions at 3 مش إنه وقف الوقت at 3 nothing will happen at 4, 5 أصلا أنا واقفة هون على الأرجح و I'm considering these future transactions but the value at 3 or the equivalent at 3 I should consider all the transactions. Okay, let's solve this one please. I need to find C that makes the two cash flow transactions equivalent at 10%. I have A and B. I want them to be equivalent at 10%. How to compare these two cash flows? What should I do first to solve for C? Two cash flows are equivalent. They will remain equivalent at any point in time, right? How do you suggest to, what do you suggest to do to solve for C?
بنجيبهم على فرضي وبنقارنهم ببعض.
Excellent, excellent. So our first step is to choose a common point in time. A common point in time, it might be 0, it might be 3, it might be 1, 2, any point in time. شوي شوي with the experience, you will learn how to choose a point in time that simplifies your calculation. Okay, so let's try to work at 2 here. As we work at 2, يعني we need to find the equivalent of cash flow A at 2 and find the equivalent of cash flow B at 2. In order for A and B to be equivalent, the equivalent at 2 equivalent at 2 تبع اثنيناتهم should be equal, right? So 500 compounded twice, 1000 discounted once, C compounded once, plus C that remains the same and it's already end of year 2. And we solve for C. So we chose 2 as a common point in time. We found the equivalent of each cash flow. End of year 2, we equate them to have C 721. Let's solve this one. At what interest rate would you be indifferent between the two cash flows? At what interest rate would you be indifferent? شو يعني indifferent؟ يعني بتعطوني A أو بتعطوني B I'm indifferent يعني ما بتفرق معي. Okay, so at what interest rate would you be indifferent between the two cash flows? يعني at which interest rate هو اثنيناتهم equivalent, right? Or at which interest rate would you trade A for B? هو كلهم أسئلة أسألكم إنه equivalent للcash flows.
كمان I need a certain point of time وبدي أشوف
Very
شو
good.
كمان.
Very good. I is unknown in this case. So we choose a common point in time. We find the equivalent of A, equivalent of B. I will be unknown in my expressions. I solve for I. Okay? So they selected 3 in your slides. To determine the equivalent at 3, 500 compounded 3 times plus 1000 should be equal to 502 compounded twice, 502 compounded once, plus 502. I is unknown, you solve for I. Okay? هون عملوها على Excel or trial and error. انتو you set I as an unknown and you solve for it if it's feasible analytically. أكيد إذا بدي أكون أعطتكم إياها بده يكون feasible analytically. Is it clear? We're done with this set of slides. Let me finish with a remark. This 502 is a special cash flow. The 3 amounts are equal. عملنا 502 compounded twice, 502 compounded once, plus 502. Imagine we have this repeated 10 times or 20 times. وعم جيب له future value. أكيد I will not be compounding one by one. We will consider in the next set of slides special cash flows. فيهم pattern معين. Equal payment repeated n times, linear gradient, geometric gradient. These are the most commonly encountered cash flows in engineering economy. رح ناخدهم نستعمل our mathematical background to develop formulas دغري بيعطونا future worth أو present worth, etc. Deal? Ready? يلا next set. We're done with this one. يلا, I was telling you we will be considering special cash flows. We have 5 types of cash flows أكتر شيء commonly encountered. We have the single cash flow. We have the equal payment series. We have the linear gradient. So each cash flow increases أو فيه يكون decreases by a constant amount. We have a geometric gradient series. So cash flow increases or decreases geometrically by a percentage small g. And finally, irregular payment series where we have no pattern, ما عندنا pattern معين. Okay? So all the 5 cash flows that we will be considering, you clearly expect in all الثلاثة I will not be compounding or discounting each transaction on its own. بعد شوي رح يصير عندنا like 360 if we are repaying the loan, the house loan over 30 years, monthly repayments. You see that we have equal payments for 360 months. So أكيد we will not be discounting or compounding each transaction on its own. We will develop formulas to do this.
Doctor, is there a certain cash flow diagram that's better than another?
No. It depends on the application. على طول بالapplication you end up with one of these عادة هول الثلاثة or combination of more than one. مثلا رح أعطيكم example. You have a truck, the maintenance cost بالأول is $50. أكيد أكتر هو. بس as the truck ages, the maintenance will increase يو linearly يو geometrically. You can combine any of these cash flows. بس ما في واحدة أحسن من الثانية. It depends on the application. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome. We will start with the first one. Although we already know everything about a single cash flow, لأنه single cash flow can be either compounded or discounted, we will use it to introduce the factor notations. In economy, we don't like the mathematical notation. مثل ها 1 plus i to the n قديشها بسيطة لإلنا. They don't like it in economy. بعد شوي هول factors رح يصيروا more complicated. ما بدهم mathematical expression. So they will replace this by what we call a economic factor. I will use the single cash flow to introduce the mathematical factor. Single cash flow عنا يا compounding يا discounting. Compounding وقتها من present للfuture we are determining the time value of money, and discounting بالعكس. Okay. This is an example of a single cash flow where you have P $2,000, 10%, 8 years. We need to find F. ليكو شو راح نعمل؟ Again, we don't like this 1 plus 0.1 to the power 8 in economy. We will replace it by this, what we call an economic factor. From now on, I want you to use these factors, not the mathematical expression. So as عم بعمل future value of a present amount, ليكو الفactor, what does it consist in? It has 3 parts. أول part is what am I looking for? Knowing what? I'm looking for F, knowing P, so بحط F knowing P. تاني argument is like a function. When we use it على Excel رح تشوفوا it's like a function in programming. It needs arguments. It has 3 arguments. So أول شيء F knowing P. شو عم نجيب؟ F knowing P. At which interest rate? For how long? Okay, so هون F knowing P, I have P, I'm looking for F. The interest rate is 10% for 8 years. Deal? هذا اسمه an economic factor. It's the first economic factor that we are introducing. بتقولوا لي من هاب بدي ارجع how to find the value. They don't like it كمان. Look شو عملوا to avoid the factors. We have table. Yes.
بس عم تعمل شي ريكورد؟ أنا مش مبين عندي.
بلا
ماشي.
اوكي. Thank you. Is it? Yeah. So أنا مش مبطل مبين بس لأنه قطش ورجع so بس بعده fortunately بعد. شو بدي أفرجيكم التيبلز. Thank you. التيبلز ليكو كيف شكلهم. Can you see the tables?
Yes.
Yes. So شوفوا ما بدهم حتى 1 plus I to the n و 1 plus I to the minus n. عملوا economic tables for different rates. هيدا ل 0.25 عملوا لكل الريتس the different rates ليكو بآخر البوك في you have this. This is for 9% for example. Single payment هي أول type of cash flow that we are considering. They gave you the 2 factors that you might need يلي هن يا compounding يا discounting. Okay, so you don't even have to do 1 plus I to the n. بتروحوا n is 10 بدي F knowing P, the factor is 2.3674. Okay. Yeah, let's continue. شو هذا ذاته؟ well, I'm only showing you how to do it on Excel. قلت لكم we will soon start our Excel applications. Every few lectures تيصير عنا enough material, we switch to Excel, okay, where we solve all the problems we solved in class but using Excel. Using Excel, we have a function called FV, future value. مثل بالprogramming, when you call a function, you need to provide it with the arguments. We will learn how to do it in Excel. Okay, these are the tables اللي فرجيتكم إياهم. We are still considering the single cash flow type, where شو عندكم هون suppose that $1,000 is to be received in 5 years. مشان هيك حطينا 1,000 هي ال F. It is to be received in 5 years. At an interest rate of 12%, what is the present worth of this amount? Okay? So very easy, بس بدي تستعملوا factor notation. We are looking for P knowing F at 12%, 5 years. Okay? So P knowing F, I'm discounting F at 12%, 5 times. We can do it in Excel using the function PV for present value. بعدنا بالsingle cash flow. We solved for P, we solved for F بهيدا الexample. فيكون عنا I unknown. If we have F and we have P, we have N, I might be an unknown, like this scenario. Okay, so بنحط F is P 1 plus I to the N. 40 is 20, 1 plus I to the 5, and we solve for I. هلا N can be an unknown. هيدا آخر سيناريو. يا P unknown, يا F, يا I, يا N بآخر example. هيدا على Excel, we will do it later. So we have P, we have F, we have I. We are looking for N. How long do you anticipate waiting before doubling the value of your stocks? كانوا 6,000 صاروا 12,000 at 20%. How long should you wait for? So we are looking for N, ليكل cash flow. You invest $6,000. You want to sell when the value is $12,000 at 20%. How long should you wait for? What is N? So شوفوا solution for N. So عنا $12,000 is $6,000, 1 plus 0.2 to the N. We have 2 is 1.2 to the N. Log on both sides تنزل ال N and solve for it. 3.8 years. End of period convention. So بنحط 4 years to double the value of your investment. This is how we do it in Excel. Rule of 72, I don't like it. يلا another آخر example, uneven payment series. Read this example for me. How much do you need to deposit today to withdraw $25,000 end of year 1, 3,000 at 2, and 5,000 at 4. Your account earns 10% interest annually. بدي أفرجيكم شي. هول كل ال problems from the book. I will upload the given so you can read the problems, get used to the way we ask. Like I typed them but it's better to have the book if you manage to get it. We are solving this one, number 4. So at all we have a story for each problem. A company can earn 10% on a lump sum deposited now and wishes to withdraw the money in the following increments. الانجليش is relatively simple. I will make sure حتى بكل الاكزامز يكون ينفهم للكل. So end of year 1, $25,000 to purchase a computer and database software. Year 2, 3,000 to purchase additional hardware. Year 3, there's no expenses. Year 4, 5,000 to purchase software updates. How much money must be deposited now to anticipate these payments? So قد بدي أحط in my bank account at 10%, I'm earning 10% to make sure to anticipate these payments. Clear الأسئلة عم تقدروا تفهمون؟ So هيدا الجيفن اللي فرجيتكم إياها هون. You should show a cash flow directly before solving your problem. So how much should you deposit today to anticipate $25,000 end of year 1, 3,000 end of year 2, nothing end of year 3, 5,000 end of year 4. This is the question. ما في شيء عندي special about it, not an equal payment. أصلا بعد ما تعلمناهم. You will need to discount each amount on its own. Okay? بدل factor notation 25,000 P knowing F 10% 1, 3,000 P knowing F 10% 2, 5,000 P knowing F 10% 4. We open the table of 10% and we take these factors, we add them to end up with P 28,622. So شو خبرتكم هون؟ عم بقلكم if you deposit today، ركزوا معي، if you deposit today 28,622 at 10%, you are sure to have 25,000 end of year 1, 3,000 end of year 2, 5,000 end of year 4. عايزينهم هول expenses. So قلت لكم if you deposit this at 10%, you are anticipating these expenses. Can we check our answer? Then a part is to check your answer using an economic table. ليكو شو حلوة. Again, شو خبرتكم؟ 28,622 حطوهم اليوم بالبنك at 10%, you will have all the expenses ready at each year. Let's check this. So أنا عملت له transpose هيدا usually بيكون transpose of this التيبل اللي بنرسمه and بتكون by column، بس هون لأنه كان شوي عريض it's okay. Okay. كان شوي طويل عملت له transpose. You feel free to plot to show your economic table مثل ما بدكم. So أنا على الزيرو. Okay. Today. What's happening today? شو قلت لكم تعملوا؟ قلت لكم go to the bank, deposit 28,622 at 10%. So like today, 28,622 positive deposited in the bank to finish with an ending balance 28,622. Deal? This will be the beginning balance. هون I will earn interest عليه. I will withdraw what I need to withdraw to check my ending balance. مظبوط? So 28,622 beginning balance. 10% earned. 25,000 paid to end up with 6,484. This is the beginning balance for the next period. 10% earned on this amount. 3,000 withdrawn. I will end up with 4,132. Beginning balance, 10%. I have no expenses end of year 3. I will end up with 4,545. I need 5,000 end of year 4. بقول هيئته ما عندي enough. بلا لأنه I will earn 5% on this 4,545. I will withdraw 5,000 to end up with a small rounding error لأنه we rounded the decimal values. Clear? I will finish with this example where the interest rates are varying 5% on 6% for 2 years, 4% for the last 2 years. ما بيفرق شيء بس you make sure to follow the interest rate that you have. $300 F knowing P على 5%. بعدين F knowing P twice على 6%. F knowing P twice على 4%. I found the value of 300 على F. Okay. 500 compounded once على 6%, twice على 4% صارت على 5. $400 compounded once على 4% صارت على F. I add them, I will have the future value of these 3 transactions with varying interest rates. Any questions?